The most dangerous illusion in war is the belief that someone else's maximalist goal can become your national strategy without cost. That is the illusion now confronting the United States. Israel wanted a decisive war with Iran. It wanted Iran broken. It wanted the Islamic Republic pushed to the edge or beyond it. It believed the window was open, that Iran's regional network had weakened, that Hezbollah was damaged, that Syria had shifted, that the moment had arrived to finish a long campaign. The United States entered that logic. And now, after all the strikes, all the pressure, all the threats, and all the talk of victory, Washington is looking at the same hard problem it faced before the war. Iran is still there. Hormuz is still there. The nuclear question is still there. The need for a deal is still there. That is the part nobody should miss. A military campaign can change the battlefield and still fail to change the final equation. That is what happened here. Iran was hurt, but Iran was not made irrelevant. Iran was pressured, but Iran did not surrender. Iran was damaged. But it retained the one instrument that makes every outside power careful, the ability to make the Strait of Hormuz unstable enough to hurt the world. That is why Washington now faces a choice it has tried to avoid. Does it keep chasing Israel's maximalist objective, or does it protect America's narrower, colder, more practical interest? Those are not always the same thing. America's practical interest is not poetic. It is not total victory. It is not a dramatic ending. It is a stable enough Middle East, a verifiable nuclear constraint, open energy routes, manageable oil prices, protected allies, and no large American war that creates a mess bigger than the problem it was supposed to solve. Israel's maximalist objective is different. It wants the Islamic Republic weakened beyond recovery. It does not want a deal that leaves the regime in place and gives it economic relief. A deal, by definition, means Iran remains. A deal means Iran receives something. A deal means the pressure is relieved in exchange for limits. That may be exactly what America needs. It may be exactly what Israel dislikes. And that divergence is where the next phase of this crisis will be decided. The public sees envoys going to Pakistan and thinks diplomacy has resumed. But diplomacy is not a plane ticket. Diplomacy is an answer to a very basic question. Who has the authority to trade? What has to be traded? Iran is not asking only whether America wants to talk. Iran is asking whether the people sent to talk can actually deliver. That matters because Tehran believes it has seen this movie before. It saw the 2015 nuclear agreement signed, then torn up. It saw diplomacy followed by force. It saw talks in Geneva and Islamabad fail in ways it interpreted as bad faith. It saw public statements claim Iranian concessions that Iran did not believe it had made. That history does not vanish because a new meeting is scheduled. It walks into the room first. If Washington sends negotiators Tehran does not take seriously, Iran will treat the meeting as theater. If Washington sends a senior figure with real authority, Iran may treat it as a test that does not guarantee success. But without that credibility, the process barely begins. This is what people misunderstand about negotiations after war. They think the question is whether the weaker side feels enough pain. Often the better question is whether the stronger side can make a believable promise. Pain without a promise creates resistance. Pain with a credible exit can create a bargain. That is the difference between pressure and strategy. The United States has created pressure. No serious person can deny that. Iran has suffered, its military has been hit, its infrastructure has been damaged, its economy has been squeezed, its leadership has been forced to calculate under harsh conditions. But pressure alone has not produced the desired political outcome. The regime has not collapsed, Iran has not accepted surrender, the Strait of Hormuz has not become safe because Washington demanded it, the nuclear problem has not been solved by bombing. If anything, the internal argument in Iran may now favor people who say restraint failed and escalation is the only language America understands. That is the danger of an incomplete war. It does not finish the enemy, it educates the enemy. And what Iran has learned is ugly. It has learned that the outside world notices Hormuz. It has learned that global oil risk gives it leverage far beyond its conventional military strength. It has learned that Israel and the United States can hurt it, but may still hesitate before taking ownership of total collapse. It has learned that a threatened choke point can force the whole world to debate its security. That lesson will not disappear. It will become part of Iran's future doctrine. Before this war, people spoke about deterrence in terms of missiles, proxies, air defenses, and the nuclear program after this war. Hormuz is at the center. It is not Iran's nuclear bomb in the literal sense, but strategically, it functions as the card that makes outsiders think twice. A nuclear weapon threatens governments. Hormuz threatens the daily cost structure of the world. That is why it may be more usable. Iran does not have to fire a nuclear weapon to make the world nervous. It only has to make the waterway feel unsafe. It only has to raise insurance premiums, slow tankers, unsettle Asian importers, force European rationing discussions, and remind American consumers that oil prices are global. This is leverage, and no state gives away leverage for free, especially after being bombed. So if Washington wants Hormuz stabilized, it has to accept a transaction, not a surrender ceremony, a transaction. Iran gives limits, America gives relief. Iran accepts verification, America lifts specific sanctions. Iran reduces escalation, America reduces military and economic pressure. Each side receives something it does not want to admit it needs. That is what diplomacy looks like when the alternative is worse. The problem is that a transaction like that collides directly with the politics of maximalism. People who promise victory do not like the language of exchange. They want capitulation. They want the other side to lose everything and call it peace. But that kind of peace is available only when the other side has been defeated. Iran has not been defeated that way, and pretending otherwise will only produce another failed round. This is where Israel becomes a strategic complication for Washington. Israel has an obvious interest in preventing Iran from becoming stronger, but Israel also has an interest in keeping pressure high enough that Iran never fully recovers. A U.S.-Iran agreement undercuts that by design. It relaxes some economic pressure in exchange for nuclear or regional limits for America. That may be a smart bargain for Israel. It may feel like unfinished business. The question is whether Washington can tolerate that difference. A great power has to know when its ally's preference is not the same as its own interest. That does not mean abandoning the ally. It means refusing to let the ally define every objective, every risk, and every end state. In business, the most dangerous partner is the one who enjoys the upside of a gamble while you carry the balance sheet. Nations should understand that even more clearly than investors. If Israel wants a maximalist war but America pays the oil price, carries the Gulf deployment, absorbs the diplomatic backlash, and risks the larger regional fire, then America must ask whether the strategy is still American. That is not isolationism, it is arithmetic. The arithmetic says this war has not delivered the promised clean result. It has created long-term consequences. The first consequence is Iranian distrust that will make every future negotiation harder. The second consequence is a harder Iranian deterrence doctrine. Hormuz will now be treated as proof that Iran can impose costs beyond its borders. The third consequence is economic. Tanker flows, oil fields, fertilizer supply, petrochemicals, insurance, and food markets. Do not normalize instantly. Even if ships begin moving again, the delay has already entered the system. The fourth consequence is political. The idea that bombing Iran would produce easy regime change has again proven to be a fantasy. People can hate their government and still rally against foreign attack. That is not complicated. It is human. The fifth consequence is strategic. Israel's military reach has been tested. It can punish Iran. It cannot alone remake Iran. The United States can magnify Israel as force, but even together, they have not produced the decisive outcome promised by the most confident advocates that matters. Because the next decision should be made from evidence, not emotion. If the evidence says there is no clean military solution, then the serious choice is not between strength and weakness. It is between realistic diplomacy and a larger, more expensive failure. The negotiating table will be difficult. Iran will demand relief. America will demand limits. Israel will resist anything that looks like Iran surviving with oxygen. Gulf states will want stability. Asian economies will want oil. Russia and China will look for advantage. Every side will try to turn the deal into proof of its own narrative. That is normal. What is not normal is pretending a deal can be reached while denying the basic logic of exchange. The United States cannot demand that Iran give up every card while America keeps every sanction, every threat, every military position, and every future option to strike. That is not a deal. That is a demand for surrender. And again, Iran has not surrendered. The question then is how much reality Washington is willing to recognize. If it recognizes reality, it can still shape the outcome. It can seek strict nuclear limits. It can demand verification. It can structure relief gradually. It can tie sanctions changes to measurable steps. It can coordinate with Gulf states. It can reduce the risk of Hormuz becoming a permanent weapon. If it refuses reality, the region drifts toward a frozen conflict or another round of escalation. A frozen conflict may sound tolerable to people far away. It is not. It means shipping risk becomes normal. Oil risk stays priced in. Military deployments stay high. Iran rebuilds under siege. Israel prepares the next strike. Gulf allies hedge. China and Russia deepen their openings. The global economy carries a constant premium for one unresolved waterway that is a tax on everyone. and it will not stay neatly contained. Energy risk becomes inflation risk. Inflation risk becomes political risk. Political risk becomes alliance strain. Alliance strain becomes strategic opportunity for rivals. This is how an unfinished war becomes a permanent cost center. That is why I would be very careful about triumphal language right now. It is easy to sound tough before the bill arrives. It is harder to pay for a bad end state year after year. The world has seen this pattern before. A war is sold as quick. The enemy is described as fragile. The costs are discounted. The exit is assumed. Then the first campaign fails to produce the desired political result, and leaders face a choice: admit the original theory was wrong or double down. The wiser course is to admit reality early. Reality here says Iran is wounded but not gone. Hormuz is damaged but not irrelevant. Israel is powerful but not omnipotent. America is strong but not free from consequence, and diplomacy is not a favor to Iran. It is the only instrument left that can turn pressure into an actual settlement. That settlement will not be beautiful. It will be criticized by hardliners on every side. It will not erase the damage. It will not make Iran friendly. It will not satisfy Israel's dream of finishing the Islamic Republic. It will not let Washington pretend the war worked exactly as promised, but it may prevent something worse. That is often what good policy does. It prevents the worst available future. So when I hear people ask whether America has no choice but to negotiate, my answer is simple. America has choices. It can negotiate seriously. It can escalate into a bigger war. It can accept a frozen conflict. It can watch Iran harden its deterrence and move closer to Russia and China. But if America's objective is a durable limit on Iran, a safer Hormuz, lower oil risk, and a Middle East that does not burn for years, then yes, negotiation is not optional. It is the only path that still connects means to ends. Everything else is motion, and motion, no matter how loud, is not the same as progress.